Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be present here. And we send salutation upon Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and those who follow the straight path. So just to review, we're starting from ayah 19, or the previous verses about, we're doing Surah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The verses prior in this Surah Muhammad is mention of warfare, qital fi sabilillah. It tells you the rules of engagement. And it talked about paradise people, it told the people of Jannah their state, and also talked about the people of Jahannam the last time that we were here. And then it spoke about the munafiqeen last time, the hypocrites. And today's whole dars will just be about the condition of the hypocrites. Every ayah that we do is and then even moving to the next dars, it'll all be just about hypocrite psychology. What do hypocrites, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the hypocrites, mudabdabina bayna dhalik, right? They're always la ilaha ula wa la ilaha ula. They're neither from this camp, neither are they from the other camp. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like to appreciate that at all. The munafiq is in the worst pit of Jahannam. Allahumma hafazna min. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like, because our deen teaches us to become very truthful. And so your heart and your tongue should be very much aligned. Muslims' activities should be very much purpose and focused, and it should be very sincere. Ikhlas. If not being sincere, that means la ilaha, you're not from this camp, not therefore you from that camp. So all the verses today are about munafiq psychology. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand them. Another thing that was mentioned last time, remember they had talked about the munafiqs, so they would come into the majlis of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would be listening carefully, but it didn't count because their hearts were closed. So, like they weren't trying to practice upon what was being said. They were just hearing, they were nodding their heads, they were just like, so. But again, this wasn't appreciated. Whereas remember we read previously that the jinns were listening very carefully and they accepted, their hearts were open. So we said that's an adab. Whenever you go to any gathering, you listen very carefully. And then by the blessing of that adab, inshallah, Allah will give us tawfiq to amal upon. So for the jinns it worked, but for the munafiqs it didn't work. Because they just didn't have the recipe right. So I have a little note here that will be inshallah beneficial to us. The manners of the adab of a majlis. And there are 5 things. The first thing, whenever you go to any gathering, 5 things. Number 1, you listen carefully. Listen carefully to what is being said. Number 2, you try to understand what is being said. Number 3, you reflect upon what is being said. And number 4, you accept what is being said. And number 5, you do amal upon it. You're going to practice upon what is being said. These are the 5 adab, manners of every gathering. Like in modern day, I think we have a habit of just listening to a whole lot of stuff that we're not planning any of these 5 things. I think it's just because it turns into more of an ear candy. We entertain ourselves by listening to a lot of things. But from an Islamic perspective, you have to be very careful. Although Islam is all for relaxation sometimes, you can have some of your relaxation where you're not paying attention. You just need to just relax and just inform. But we have to just remember that there are some majalis that are important. So over there we have to apply our form. Okay, so we held for the majlis that you're wasting your time. That's it. Then it mentioned, I'm still on the previous verse. Okay. Then it mentioned in the previous steps about that the munafiqs, they had a stamp on their heart. As a result, because they had done certain disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a result they got their stamp. And as a result, this is the behavior now. So this is not like this behavior doesn't come about just out of a vacuum. And then it's first you behaved incorrectly, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed your heart. Then now you go to majlis gatherings, and now you don't benefit from those gatherings. So it's a process. And then it mentioned people of adab, meaning let's imagine the people who are not like that in a munafiq state, but who are listening and then who are following the adab. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned in the previous verses that their hidayah increases. Every time they sit in a gathering of remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their hidayah is increasing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those. Ameen. Then also another thing that was mentioned last time. It was mentioning that didn't the signs of the Day of Judgment already come? So the signs of the Day of Judgment, right? Some of the major, some of them will come afterwards. Some have already occurred, like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some minor ones have already occurred, right? people will be disobedient to their parents, etc. Right? All the different vices that are there. Signs of the Day of Judgment are a proof of the Day of Judgment. There are many proofs that there will be a Day of Judgment, right? There has to be accountability of what's going on in the world. That's a proof. That's a logical proof. The Quran itself mentioning that there's a Day of Judgment, that's a proof in itself. And also the fact that the signs have already come. If the Quran says that these are the signs of the Day of Judgment, when they come about, since the signs have already come, that proves to you there's a Day of Judgment. Moving on. So the first verse for today. فَعْلَمْ. So know أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. Know that there is no deity except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, every verse today is about addressing the munafiqeen. That the munafiqeen should fix their فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So this, and they should know that there is no deity except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They should meaning, in other words, fix your aqidah, fix your belief in the Creator. Meaning that the Dhat and the Sifat, there should be no, we should believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the way He is. And we accept all His commandments the way they are. Whether we are able to do them or not, that's secondary, but we should accept them. That's part of the articles of faith, right? I believe in Allah as He is with His many names, and I accept all His commandments. This statement that I just read, this is the article of faith of the believers. I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He is, with His many names and His many attributes, and accept all His commandments. I accept all His commandments, not saying that you do all His commandments, I accept. Right? That's good enough. At least that puts you in the right fold. And then the other article of faith is, I believe in Allah, His angels, His books, His messengers, the last day, and fate. Good and evil comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of resurrection after death. This is the article of faith number 2, the more detailed one. This is just in basic. So Aqidah is very important. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our attention to it. Because if you don't have, our amal won't count, right? Without our aqidah. Aqidah is also part of your ilm. So from when it comes to your ilm of the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like when it comes to your knowledge of Islam, the most important knowledge of Islam that you're supposed to have is the belief system. What do we believe about things? Our a'mal will come afterwards. Beliefs also become corrupted when you just, different environments. If you're just listening to not learning your deen from the proper sources, your nazriyat, your concepts of the world could become very corrupted. Then, so that's first advice given to the munafiqeen, that you know what, your aqidah, know that aqidah is important. Then after that, wastaghfir, and seek forgiveness for your sin, and for the believing man and for the believing woman. No, this verse actually, this is the address to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Maybe indirectly speaking to the next verses will go into the munafiqeen. This one's Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that O Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you know that there's no deity except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you seek forgiveness for your sin. Tell Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, for your dam. Prophets are sinless. So you seek forgiveness for your dam, and for the believing men and for believing women. So it's teaching us to do istighfar. Throughout our lifetime, we should continuously do istighfar. What are the benefits of istighfar? Allah outlines in many, many verses. So why does the Prophet have to do istighfar? Prophets are sinless. The reason they do istighfar, when you don't have any sins, it just elevates your ranks. So even if you have a small child making istighfar who's not even of age, his levels, he's getting hasanat. He's getting good deeds. And if you feel that you've already done your tawbah and you don't have any sins, but still it'll always help you. Istighfar are gonna go what? It's just gonna help you. If you finish your sins, then you'll start to elevate your ranks. I'm just gonna share some points about istighfar and tawbah. Major sins require tawbah. The smaller sins, just your a'mal, the a'mal that you do, Jummah to Jummah, every time you attend the masjid, every time you pray, every time you're making wuzu, every time you're walking to the masjid, those ones are taken care of. However, there's a caveat, there's a condition. The condition is mentioned in the Quran. In tajtanibu kaba'ira ma tunhawna an, nukaffir ankum sayyi'atikum. Make sure you understand this condition well. The condition is that if you abstain from the major sins, then we will expiate your minor sins. So you have to. So some ulama take from this verse that that if you're not mindful of your major sins, then maybe that's not going to work for you. That Friday to Friday, all your small sins, right? Maybe you'll be held for even you might even have be held for your mu'akhaza, take into account for even your smaller sins. So Allah mahfazna min. So as a believer, you have to be very mindful of the major sins. You always do tawbah from those ones. The smaller ones that goes under your radar, maybe things that you don't know, under your radar, it's not in your knowledge. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through your a'mal, the good deeds that you're doing, praying, wuzu, 5 times salah, coming to the masjid, Jum'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expiate those. Ramadan to Ramadan, Umrah to Umrah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expiate them, inshallah. Another question arises here. That the Prophet had, as we mentioned, he didn't have any, but it says, seek forgiveness from your dham. And the Arabic word dham is for a big sin. But this reference is to the Prophet ﷺ, that if you seek forgiveness from your dham, and we know prophets are ma'asum. We believe all prophets didn't commit any sin. However, they made a mistake. We call that mistake. Khata ijtihadi, mistake. When you're choosing between two things, you chose one over the other, one that was something that you made a bad selection. And prophets are held to a very high standard, so therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala holds them to account for that. Like Musa alayhi salam, he was pushing two people fighting, and he told one person move that way, and then pushed him that way, and that person happened to pass away. So that wasn't done on purpose. He was just trying to tell him move over that way, and he hit him, and that hit, he passed away. So we would say that though the Prophet didn't commit a sin, he didn't mean to murder him. He was just trying to tell him to stop fighting, because the two people were fighting. So anytime there's a mention of something about an anbiya, we'll say it's a mistake, or you say khata ijtihadi. And then why are they admonished? Why did Allah address the Prophet ﷺ? The Prophet ﷺ, why did you do it like this? Remember that Sahabi who couldn't see, abasa tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma, right? There was a Prophet ﷺ, there were some leaders here to speak, but there was a blind Sahabi trying to ask a question. The Prophet ﷺ thought that maybe he shouldn't come this time. And then, I have other people, you're always here in the masjid, so maybe I'll speak to them first. Like that's Allah said, no. Why did you? So again, that's not a sin. It's as the Prophet said, sinless. This will be khata ijtihadi. He did his own analysis. His analysis, he selected one. Allah corrected him and said, no, in your analysis, we be like it the other way. So this is just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doing his tarbiyat of his Nabi. And also teaching us that we also need nurturing in the world. But the Anbiya, they get their nurturing directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he mentions, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you seek istighfar for the believing men and for the believing women. Wallahu ya'lamu mutaqallabakum, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows your movements, your going about, wa mathwakum, and your end destination. The tafsir of this verse is two tafsirs. One is from a worldly perspective, and one you could do of the akhirah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you're going here and there. Meaning that in life when you travel here and there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all your movements. وَمَثْوَاكُمْ, and He knows your end result. Meaning all your life you just move from here to there, and then you pass on this world and you reach your final destination. Allah says we already know your movements, and we know, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ilm has everything, right? We're just playing out our life, but His ilm is comprehensive. He knows. We have the pixel, He has the picture. So we have the pixel, He has the picture, He knows what's going to happen. So this is a reference to that. Then the next verse, وَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, and those who believe say, لَوْلَا نُزِّلَتْ Surah, that we wish that a surah would come down. So this is talking about the states of the munafiqeen, that they wish that a surah would come down and it have something mentioned in it of warfare. But then when that verse does come, then all of a sudden they're disheartened. So one of the hypocrite psychology, he talks more than and then he says things, he overpraises things, and he's not ready to act. And we know actions talk louder than words. So your act should be great. You don't have to always talk big and bad. You have to make sure your actions speak that, right? So the munafiqs, they're like, oh, we wish we get a surah. that tells us, like and then we're just waiting. We'd let that surah come that tells us to go in combat mode. And when that combat mode comes, combat mode is so tough. Who wants to go to war, man? Nobody wants to go to war. So Allah was saying, we're testing you. Sometimes we don't want you to go to war. So that time, that's your test. So the munafiq will say at that time, oh, I wish I was going to war. But it's time to go for war. He'll be like, no, I wish I wasn't going to war. Anytime Allah's commandment comes, he's always finding his middle way out. He's just not satisfied with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying. So it says, فَإِذَا أُنْزِلَتْ سُورَةٌ مُحْكَمَةٌ. Then once an operative surah is sent down, وَذُكِرَ فِيهَا الْقِتَالِ, and warfare is mentioned in it, رَأَيْتَ الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِم مَرَضٌ. You will see those in whose hearts is illness. Because the munafiq, basically his spiritual diseases have never been, it remains. He doesn't cure himself. He doesn't do tazkiyah. The munafiq doesn't cleanse in his heart. So he's got all that mess in there. So you'll see the one who has illness in his heart. يَنْزُرُونَ إِلَيْكَ. They are looking to you, O Prophet ﷺ, نَظَرَ الْمَغْشِيِّ, like as though they're fainting min al-maut. They're fainting and they're like almost dying. فَأَوْلَى لَهُمْ. So destruction is very close to them. Meaning all that boldness is gone. When that mandatory warfare time would come, the munafiq mentality would be is that although it'd be the right thing to do, but he'll back off. And so he's a pretender. I have two stories written here, but I written them last week and I forgot how they're connected. But I'll just tell you the stories anyway. You all like hearing stories, no? You guys don't like stories? You like stories? Okay. I mean, there are Sahaba stories, right? The stories of the Prophet ﷺ and Sahaba interaction, but I forgot the correlation, how they link here. Okay? So let's leave the link. Let's just hear a story about Sahaba. Maybe the link will come. One story is that in the Battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ was going, I believe it's Battle of Badr. There was a simple person, Bedouins. They saw that all the armies are being set up. Prophet ﷺ's army is here and the opposite army is there. So he was just having some dates. And he's just passing by. He's just having his dates. He's not even a Muslim. So he just sees army. He can't, he's too simple. He doesn't even know what an army is. He doesn't know why is everybody assembled here. So he's like, why is everyone assembled here? He said that we were about to fight. So, and we're Muslims and it's a true battle, and it's truth versus falsehood. And if you passed in it, they use martyr. So he said, yeah, can I be part of this? I said, yeah, you can be part of this. You just have to become Muslim first. He said, okay, that's no problem. Well, how do you become Muslim? I said, you just take Shahada. And then he said, okay. He took his Shahada, and then he wasn't even finished eating his dates. He just threw his dates, and he joined the battle. And then he passed away in that battle, and he became martyr. So I forget the link, but this is, somewhere in the seerah like that. Okay? Link up languages. Okay. Another story I have here. This is something in the Battle of Khaybar, that there is something similar to this. That there was a shepherd, same idea. He saw the formation of army ranks. They came, they said, who's the leader of this army? They said, this Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he saw Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he wouldn't distinguish himself. He would always be seated, and in a way, people would not be able to even tell which one was the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he comes, finds Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and then that's the same thing. He has his own, this person doesn't have the dates, he has sheep. He's grazing them. And they told, well, what are you all doing? It's truth versus falsehood. And whoever joins this campaign and passes away at the end is going to be a martyr. He said, yeah. I'm going to go straight to Jannah. Like, go straight shot. You have to wait till you die. I mean, not your natural death. So he said, if that's the case, then yeah, I think I'd like to be part of this plan. So, and Prophet told him, okay, if that's the case, then but the sheep that you have, they belong to the other side, the disbelievers. That he was just somebody who's herding the sheep for the other party, the kuffar. So he said, that's an amana. You have the sheep. First go return the sheep, and then come back, take your shahada, join the campaign. And this person also joined the campaign, and he also passed away. So of course, he'll go straight to Jannah. Just accepted Islam, didn't pray any salat, no Quran reading, didn't learn the Qaida yet. And then he goes straight to Jannah. So I mean, again, we can take from here, since we're talking about munafiqs, I mean, look how simple they were. But they just did the right thing. I thought they weren't, they didn't play around with the rules. They just did something very simple, but just did the right thing. And they were able to be very successful. Okay, moving on. The next verse. طاعة وقول معروف. Obedient and قول معروف, and saying good words. Meaning that, again, about the munafiqs, that sometimes when you find a munafiq acting very obedient and saying good words, but again, if he's munafiq at heart, that his obedience and his good words are not counting because he's not mukhlis. Sometimes he's probably doing it just to become popular, maybe he's doing it for ulterior motives. So may Allah SWT grant us ikhlas. See, the opposite of all this is ikhlas. So then it says, فَإِذَا عَزَمَ الْأَمْرُ, when Allah SWT plans something, فَلَوْ صَدَقُوا اللَّهِ, if had they been truthful to Allah, these munafiqs, that when Allah SWT is firm on them, Allah is telling you to do something. Okay, this is the sunnah, this is wajib. فَإِذَا عَزَمَ الْأَمْرُ, when something is decided for you by Allah SWT, فَلَوْ صَدَقُوا اللَّهِ, had they confirmed Allah to be true, that okay, this is from my Creator, this is what we're doing. لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ, it would have been better for them. It would have been much better for the munafiq. Then moving on to the next verse. فَهَلْ عَسَيْتُمْ إِن تَوَلَّيْتُمْ, that, oh munafiqeen, do you wish that if you were, there's two tafseers of tawallaytum, I'll just give you one. Tawallaytum, one meaning of tawallaytum, if you had kingdom. That, oh munafiq, do you wish that you were the boss? You had all the kingdom, money, power, you desire these things. And tufsidu fil ard, if you had all these things, then you would cause mischief in the earth. And you would you'll cut kinship, people's relationships. You would create a division between humanity, and you would cause fasad on the earth. So if munafiqs take over the leadership of the world, it's not going to be good. You have to be very clean at heart. You have to be a very sincere person, is going to become very good for the general masses. This brings us to the point about that even governments should be very mindful that they should have the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a guiding factor for them. If you're putting shunning the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aside and then doing things, all the guidance, hidayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for humanity, putting all that aside, just doing so, then it's not the recipe of, they will also fall under this verse. Meaning you still got to do fasad, whether you know it or you don't. So for an example of that, like if it's a secular government, what will happen is that for them, like they don't mind sins, all the vices that Allah has declared vices, they don't consider those as sins. All the shirk, all the things that Allah has declared as problem number one, that's not in place as problem number one. To them, what may be a problem, maybe there's like somebody's breaking something, there's a protest that's gone violent or something. They say, oh, that's a problem. Other than that, our society is perfectly fine. This is a secular mindset. But the Muslim mindset, an Islamic government mindset would be, is that the breaking the windows or something like that, somebody got emotional, that's human nature. Real problem is shirk, zulm, their heart has to be clean. It would try to take that whole society and see that from the bottom of their heart, they remove the inner vices. The society's hearts become great hearts that are, that Allah subhanahu likes. So it works its way down up, from the hearts up. Whereas the kafir governments would more, will brush away all that and just fix and make sure nobody's just breaking anything, as long as everything is peaceful. Whatever else that's happening, this is not something that we need to be worried about. So I just mentioned all this because it mentions, oh hypocrites, do you want kingdom? Do you wish in tawallaytum? Do you wish that we make you king? And if we do, you're going to cause mischief in the earth because problem in your heart. So if you don't fix that problem in your heart, you're not going to govern very well anyway. So Allah SWT give us tawfiq that we fix the illnesses that may come in our hearts. Okay. The next verse, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ, so such people, لَعْنَهُمُ اللَّهُ, Allah SWT la'na is upon them. Allah SWT is cursed upon them who are being hypocrites. فَأَصَمَّهُمْ, and it makes them dumb, وَأَعْمَى أَبْصَارَهُم, and it makes them blind from the truth, right? They're not able to hear and see the truth. Then the next verse, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, why don't they ponder over the Quran? أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا, or are there locks on their hearts. So even though it's munafiqs, but still try them, why don't the munafiqs ponder over the Quran? Meaning they're telling them that even they could be cured. They're not a situation of no turnaround. Instead, whatever you have in your heart, if you want to fix it, you ponder over the Quran, you reflect upon the verses of the Quran, Allah will take care of your spiritual diseases. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make the Quran a shifa for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, and we have revealed in the Quran مَا هُوَ shifa, that which is a cure. وَرَحْمَةُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. So scholars say that the Quran is not just a spiritual cure, it's also a physical cure, but it's definitely a spiritual cure. It's primarily, number one, is a spiritual cure. So some of these traits that we're mentioning about the munafiqin, these things could even creep in us, right? The alamat, these types. So we have to take the cure of the Quran. It's not by reading the Quran, having that connection with the Quran, it cures it. That's why, we have to also always be part of that reading the Quran. Ramadan's coming close, right? We're all going to read, inshallah, lots of Quran. So that cures our heart. It's like it gives you all your spiritual, the needs of your body are fulfilled through just the recitation of the Quran. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us a lot of it. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ ارْتَدُّوا عَلَى أَدْبَارِهِمْ, those who turn on their heels, مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا تَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْهُدَى, after that the guidance was made clear to them, الشَّيْطَانُ سَوَّلَ لَهُمْ, the shaitan, he has tempted them, وَأَمْلَى لَهُمْ, and he has involved them in far-fetched fancies. Again, munafiq attitude, meaning that you're told to go on a campaign. When you were there, then since you were not true to your cause, maybe you were there just for the show of it. And then when the real battle happened, then you turning onto your back. So saying that, look, you're turning your back after we told you this was the truth. And why you did all this? Because you're listening to shaitan. Shaitan fashioned this for you. You're using your intellect, you wouldn't have done all this. But shaitan, he made all this kind of behavior seem very nice to you. And he gave you false hopes. Also in the dunya, the hadith makes it clear, Jannah is hidden with all the hardships, right? In the world, so many difficult things that we do. What's behind all that? The salah, the righteousness, the morality. You get Jannah, it's hardship. And with all the ease, then there's Jahannam there. So life is a test. Allah has created it as a test. And shaitan's job is to do what? Just adorn everything for you. All the bad acts, he's going to make it, adorn it. And all the good acts, what is he going to do? Make you look boring. Coming to dars. Coming to dars. So make all the good activities feel like, understand? He doesn't adorn all this. And all the useless acts, he adorns it. This is good. And he just lying to you. And shaitan, Allah has made it very clear to you that this is his plan. You're in the world. Allah has created good and evil. You're in a test. And you need to pass from this test to get to your home, Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. Inshallah. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ, that is because they say لِلَّذِينَ كَرِهُ, that is because they say to those who hate that which Allah has revealed, we will obey you in some respects. وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ إِسْرَارَهُمْ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows their secret talks. So the munafiqs, they had a cooperation with the Jews, with the non-Muslims. So at that with the Muslims, they would act like they were Muslims, but then they had secret meetings going on with the disbelievers. So again, munafiq, meaning that he wants to do some of what the other people are doing. He doesn't want to wholeheartedly just follow the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything he wants to be part of both camps. So they say, we will obey you in some respects. Kuch kuch hum aapki bhi manenge. Kuch kuch. Kuch kuch hum aapki bhi manenge. Kuch kuch. So like that, thoda bahut aapka, thoda usko bhi sun liya. And then at the end of the day, it's man money. Right? In Urdu we say man money. Man money means just do what you wish. Understand? So deen is not like that. Deen is about submission. It's about going against yourself. It's something tough. Understand? So if it's easy, understand, money. Understand? Most people, shaitan just adorns it for you. They just bring money. And sometimes in the name of religion, they're doing money. They think they're super religious people, but they're doing really technically what they're doing is just money. If you tell them what's the right thing, or sometimes they might say, oh yeah, tell me the truth, we'll do it. It's like they talk big in that. Munafiq psychology. We'll do it. Bas bataye aap hame kya karna hai. And right when we tell them karna ye hai, I don't know. And then although what we told them is something, it is humanly, of course, possible for them to do it, but they just have those diseases in the heart that's going to prevent them from walking that straight path. Okay? So this is what we pray for. You know, when we pray, when we say, Ihdina siratal mustaqim, show us the straight path. This is that straight path. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and keep us on it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows their secrets. Then the next verse. فَكَيْفَ إِذَا تَوَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ. How will it be when the angels will take their souls? يَضْرِبُونَ وُجُوهَهُم. Now reminding the munafiq that, oh munafiq, now think what's going to be your state? Because you disobeyed me all this time. You're not allowed to be a hypocrite on the earth. Because you behave like a hypocrite. Now you think about when you're going to pass, how is it going to feel? يَضْرِبُونَ وُجُوهَهُم. When you take out your souls. يَضْرِبُونَ وُجُوهَهُم. They will strike their faces and their backsides. Doesn't mean the angels will do your pitai. And then striking them on their faces and their backs. And this life compared to the akhirah, how small is it? Then when you show up in the akhirah, and if people ask you, how long do you just live on the earth? You say, oh, it's like morning time. There's a couple of responses that Quran mentions, right? I was just here for an hour. It was almost like a breakfast time. And then, like right now, you just look at your life, how many years you have lived, and your memory, what is it? Nothing. So it's very insignificant. So we should think about our death. What's on this question here? How will it be when the angels take out your soul? And the description, this verse just says that, how will it be when it wants you to think about that. Where's the answer to that? How are they going to take our soul? All the descriptions are in hadith. A hadith mention how the angels will take out the soul. So the people who do wrong, a'mal, they will have scary angels. They're going to look very frightening. And their soul would not want to come out. Because the soul realizes that it's in trouble. It's in trouble. That's why when a person is passing, and when the angels come, when you start seeing the angel, then you can't do tawbah at that time. The doors of tawbah are shut because the other world is opening up to you. And then these angels, scary angels, will come out, they want to take your soul. And even your soul is intelligent, it doesn't want to go because it knows that it's in trouble. So then they have to pull it out. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives description of even the angels pulling out the soul. Maybe this is something important for us to know. وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا وَالسَّابِحَاتِ. In that surah, Surah Al-Nazi'at, the first 4 or 5 verses, they're about the angels. They have to go into your body and pull out that soul that doesn't want to come out. And they pull it out. And when they pull it out, it's like wet foam pulled from like iron. It's like with some hooks. It's like snatched out from the body. And a good soul is going to be the complete opposite of this. It's going to be in bliss. Because you did proper amal, Allah will accepted you as soon as you pass from this world. One of the things that you'll see, the angels will come in a very pleasant way. And your soul will just, because you're ready to go. You're ready to go. You realize that this whole world was a test and you were just ready to fly to wherever they want to take you. Put you in your waiting room. And then even your time in your waiting room will be very quick, inshallah. Allah make us of those souls, inshallah. So all this depends on your a'mal. All this depends on your a'mal. We have all the time that we have time to correct it. You can correct it. That's the beautiful thing about life, is that you can always correct it. You can do istighfar. You can turn everything around while we are living. Then it mentions after that, ذَلِكَ, and that is بِأَنَّهُمُ اتَّبَعُوا, because they followed مَا أَسْقَطَ اللَّهِ. These munafiqs, they followed that which angered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All the things that angered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these people were involved in it. وَكَرِهُ رِضْوَانَهُ, Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are told that these are things that makes Allah happy. You pray namaz, Allah makes you happy. Follow the sunnah of Rasulullah makes you happy. They disliked everything that made them happy. All the things that makes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy, kari, the munafiqs don't like it. فَأَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالَهُم. So we deleted their actions. Because sometimes man, he does certain disobediences, it deletes his habat, it deletes your actions. So because you get involved in certain things, that it's gonna wipe away your actions. So this person kept doing things that angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the things that are told that this gets you the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just running away from them. And thus we deleted this person's actions, and now he shows up on the other side like that. Allahumma hafazna, Allah protect us from such a state. So this was the last verse. The verses will continue about munafiq state, inshallah, next time as well. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanallah al-azim.